My name is Marcus Robinson. I'm an assistant program officer with LISC DC. I am
And what is
doing
List
work.
DC?
Oh, LISC DC is a local initiative support corporation. It's a DC based CDFI. If anyone's not familiar, a community development financial institution, essentially like a bank and nonprofit combined. Um, and we primarily do work in DC and affordable housing. Investing, and other nonprofit support who provide uh, mostly human services like food pantries and whatnot. And I am on List DC, a part of the Blue Line work or the Central Avenue corridor, in which this walk audit was a part of. Um, and just a heads up, I can't stay super long. I have a conflict at 5. I just want to poke my head in, and see some initial thoughts. So thank
Thanks.
you, Cheryl, for the
Thanks,
recording.
Marcus. And Eric Florence from SHA. Could you introduce yourself?
Sure. Good afternoon, all. My name is Eric Florence. I'm the Deputy District Engineer for State Highway Administration, District 3 Office.
Thanks so much, Eric, for joining us.
Okay.
Seth?
Hello, everyone. Seth Grimes. I'm Maryland organizer with the Washington Area Bicyclist Association, working with Joseph.
Great. And I see that Bernard is having problems with his audio. Bernard is part of Rice Prince George's, so he probably will log back in at some point. And then Ashley, we met before. Thanks, Ashley, for joining us. I'm gonna share my screen, and then most of us were on the walk, and so we can I wanted to review what we saw and what we heard. Let's see. I'm going to do slideshows. So if you need something, you need to tell me, because I don't think oh, maybe I will be able to see you. Oh, I can see you. Okay. So we did this focused on Central Avenue walk audit. And this is the route that we took from can you see my cursor, my arrow?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So we started at Central High School, which is about like, like half a mile from Central Avenue. It's like a quarter mile, you think? I don't know. It is definitely a walkable distance. And then we walked up to Cindy Lane, then we crossed there and we walked back and we crossed at Addison Road and then came back. We as a group decided not to cross here at the intersection of Cabin Branch Road and Central, because it was considered too risky. We'll show you what it looks like. And I actually want to take this opportunity for Joseph to give us a little bit of background on how this walk audit came together and how it relates to his work.
Yeah, certainly. So this is, as Cynthia mentioned, part of a grant through the Maryland Highway Safety Office to educate high school students and perform outreach in the county around, excuse me, safe multimodal transportation. I worked with a group of students through a library in Hyattsville through their teen action group to put on one walk audit in Hyattsville, which related to a couple other students that are part of this internship program with WABA, and then worked with Cheryl to put this together. And we were able to do lots of outreach to the school, and then a few teachers, and the PTSA president joined in the planning of the walk audit. They identified this route and the day, May the 6th, and then gathered the students, and we were able to actually connect with the students through connecting with the teachers and the PTSA president. It was 3 teachers on our planning call, the PTSA president as well, and they basically shared their story. One teacher has had lots of trouble in terms of multimodal transportation. The community's had deaths in this area through multimodal transportation crashes, and it's it's a real concern. So it was great to work with them and help facilitate and bring stakeholders to this walk audit. So it was primarily led by the teachers and students, whereas WABA was more or less acting as the facilitator, giving students the resources they needed to actually take part in the walk audit. And we received good feedback, and hopefully this can lead to further changes so that students can cross the street much more safely.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna go with a sequence of the walk. These are actually sort of the extra people in addition to the students who, and some of you, who participated in the walk audit, including the council members of WABA Gay and council member Crystal Oriata, also sent staff. And then this sheet, obviously you can't read it, but I just wanted to flag it for people to take a look at it. It is, we had this actually, the walk audit was actually a second step in an effort we were doing to promote education around complete streets and the urban street design standards that Prince George's has. And we were able to get grant funding to have a national transportation planning firm, Tool Design, do a training, a 4-hour training of transportation professionals. I was able to provide that to MDOT, SHA, and Prince George's and Maryland National Capital Park and Planning staff. And then the trainer, one of the trainers was able to Jeremy Churzan was also able to join us for the walk as well. And these are his notes basically. So these are the notes of a very experienced transportation designer and planner. And so they're worth looking at in some detail, but we're not going to read them here, but you can see that there's something that, and I can share this with they're helpful comments. So starting, we walked down from the school, and the first, I'd say, big spot is I have a sort of images of both us coming and going. We have Chinita was she's the track coach. She's got her arm raised in the air on the top right. She and then James Harper was someone who really wanted us to focus on this crossing. I didn't take good enough photos. I don't know if other people want to make some comments about this. There's no crosswalk here, which is sort of the obvious problem, but I just wanted to invite other people who participated, what their observations were for this site.
I'll speak up. So one of the things that I noticed, you walk out, it's a school, obviously it's a high school, they're a different, educated than an elementary, but no crosswalk, but almost seems to just be open to no safe place for them to travel at all, even when they cross the street. The way that they can cross the street is not quite safe distances to look to see, especially knowing vehicles are not traveling at that speed limit. So they have to get across the street where there are sidewalks that are available, but not directly across.
Yeah. Other comments?
This is Clarice.
Hi,
I'm
Clarice.
here. How are
Why don't you
you?
introduce yourself?
I am book board. I'm one of the teachers from Central High School. One of the main things my children said is that they almost have to do 80 miles an hour themselves to try to get across the street from that point, because cars do not slow down. Even and they would think, a lot of them said that they would like to have a crosswalk or some type of lighting, like the crossing walk that they have at intersections to get across, or crossing guard if possible. And I do apologize for being a little late. It's just been rough today.
Well, thank you for joining us. Appreciate it. Yeah, so a lot of problems at this site. Let's see. I think hold on. Oh, and so I just wrote down here's another this is the site starting with the school, and then I circled the site in this map. And so kind of the kind of the list of problems that we found where there's no sidewalk on the east side, there's no crosswalk from the west sidewalk to the school drive. As you can see, this road is overly wide. It's a neighborhood street, but it's very wide. There's no buffer for the sidewalk on the only sidewalk doesn't have a buffer all the way. And I actually added this one at the end, and I want to point out this red dot here. Something from just talking to planners today about it is, did people talk about other connections to kind of come in the back way to the high school? We understand there are informal trails that are across education. It's owned by the Board of Education, so it's actually publicly owned land. And and it's this actually, I wonder if I can show you a different. Oh, okay. So if you look here, here's the school. Basically, you can see there's actually a lot of, there are going to be some kids coming from here, right? And so the connectivity is pretty, awkward to have to walk all the way down here and then walk all the way back up when you could cross a stream and come in the back way to the high school. So we just wanted to flag that. And I understand there are some past. Linda, did you have any knowledge of that? Or does anybody else have any knowledge?
Yeah, actually, it was something that I mentioned to Elena, and that because I parked in the parking lot close to the auditorium, I observed some of the students, once school let out, cutting through the parking lot and cutting up the hills. And it made me wonder if there were other pathways. And so I was talking with Elena about that. We've not gone back out and done our own investigation, but I expect there are some desire lines, if not some marked trails that people are using to cut through to get into the school for that very reason. They don't want to have to go all the way down
Right.
Kevin Branch and then come back up.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on to the intersection of Maryland 214 and Cabin Branch Road. So Cabin Branch Road is a county road and Maryland 214 is a state road. And so at that intersection, everybody needs to work together. These are some images of the, we walked, and this actually, I think this is a dirt path on this side. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So there's a desire line there, a dirt path, because people want to walk on that side of the road to get to the high school. And then these are the three legs of the crossing that or kind of I wanted to flag if you lived up the hill here, you might want to cross here to get to school. If you took the bus and it dropped you off here, you would obviously want to cross the roadway. Right now, these are very soft corners, meaning that vehicles can a turning vehicle could take it at a pretty substantial speed. And there's actually and it's a 6-lane highway here, and there's no signal, there's no even a crosswalk, there's very little support or no support at all for high school students crossing who are taking the bus maybe every day to get to Cabin Branch Road to go to their school. Do people have observations about this intersection?
I've noticed some of the children, they walk and they have to, well, they have to run across to make sure they get across safely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And cars do not slow down.
And it's also the topography is also kind of working against you because it's at kind of a trough of two hills.
Right. That I was just going to add to that, that you're driving downhill from either direction, and driving downhill, you're picking up speed. So at the base, cars are just naturally going faster.
Right. And on the right, this image is basically from Cindy Lane coming down towards Cabin Branch and going towards and looking up at the Addison Road metro station. And you can see how wide it is. And I know that this is a candidate for signalization to better control movements of vehicles and people through this area. And kind of the list that I came up with based on some people's comments and also the from Tool Design was, obviously there's missing sidewalks, there's no signal. And actually one of the things that Jeremy, the transportation planner from Tool Design pointed out is that exactly what this lower photo shows is that there's awkward turning into Cabin Branch. And you can see that basically to signalize this could improve the safety for and kind of manage of traffic as well, vehicle traffic as well, to get safer interactions between people who are crossing that and turning vehicles, basically. But we still have these, we have overly wide roads that have high speeds. There are no bus stop amenities. When we came out here, there were lots of kids waiting at this bus stop at the end of the day. There's obviously very large turning radius so that vehicles don't have to slow down to take the turn. And obviously that lengthens that crossing distance that this pedestrian is navigating. And then well, I mean, I'm talking about the same intersection. I don't know if there's any other thoughts that people have for this intersection. Okay. And then sort of, we crossed Cindy Lane. There are some details that Jeremy from Tool Design put into his notes, and I invite you to he gets very technical because he's worried about ADA compliance, and there's just a lot going on. So I didn't want to bog us down to too much technical detail. What we experience on Central Avenue in general is there are narrow sidewalks. Some of the sidewalks have no buffer with traffic, and that's one thing that students talked about was being right next to cars, being kind of scary right next to cars and cars driving fast. And also another thing that Jeremy pointed out was that there are lots of driveways in and out that aren't even doing very much, basically, but just create more kind of exposure for pedestrians. And Ashley, I don't know if you wanted to share some of I know that you talked to some of the students, you got some good feedback from them. Did you want to comment on some of that?
Yeah, sure. I think that certainly. I think one of the things that Miss Clarice Cook-Ward mentioned, at that same intersection that you showed, Cabin Branch and Central Avenue, lots of the students echoed like they have to sprint through, and they were saying like the cars, they don't stop. They don't stop for us. But I think that one of the most kind of I would say challenging or maybe frustrating parts for me, just speaking with some of the students, is that they kind of normalize, they don't really truly understand, perhaps. I mean, they know obviously crossing the intersection is like, really hard for them. But as we were walking through, I was kind of taking note of how fast the buses were driving by, how fast the cars are driving by. And when I asked them about it, those were things that were kind of like normal to them, right? So it was something that they've kind of like internalized. And so really kind of pushing them to understand like, hey, you shouldn't have to sit down at the bus stop on the grass, or, some of these sidewalks should be a little bit bigger. So yeah.
I wanted to recognize that Delegate Kent Roberson has joined us, and if Delegate, if you wanted to say a few words of introduction, I know this is your district, and in fact, I believe that you have a son who attends Central High School.
Yes, thank you so much. I apologize for being off camera as I'm driving my son now from an eye appointment, but I appreciate this opportunity to join you all and just being looped in on the conversation, which is an issue that I've been flagging for my staff for a while, and just glad that us as the community were able to come together on this. So happy to just lend my support and help in any way that I can, and so glad that we're finding ways to collaborate on this to resolve this issue. Thank you once again.
Great, thank you so much, Delegate, for carving out the time, however you can, to participate, and we appreciate that you were able to join us for the walk as well. Okay, so let's see, we sort of did, students talked about driving fast and too close to cars and narrow sidewalks and no bus stop amenities. This is, the intersection of Central Avenue and Addison Road. I did a couple of different images of it. So this is one. You can see it's a very wide intersection. It's, a very long crossing. The have these rounded corners, gentle corners, curb radius is sort of the technical term, that allows for faster turns. Basically, Clarice, did you want to say something?
Most of our children don't really cross here, I
Okay,
guess because it's too far away from the school. But the few that do, they also echo the sentiment about crossing further down, that how fast they have to run to get across the street.
yeah. And I'll note that this area with this 6-lane highway is actually the posted speed limit is 30 miles an hour. But when we did
Wow.
our workshop, they the SHA shared data, and I didn't see it written down, but they said that the what's called the 85th percentile speed of kind of what most vehicles are moving at was 58 miles an hour. So obviously way too fast. And Jeremy Churzan, the engineer from Tool Design, said that, well, you know, the 6 lanes here are not, you don't need 6 lanes for the traffic volumes that you have here. And you know, you could easily get by with 4 lanes. This is another view of the intersection. Now, Addison Road is a county road, not a state road. And so any kind of tightening up that intersection is a collaboration between, or a sort of work things out between the state and the county. And so just kind of in summary, we did spend less time on this intersection. But you know, it's an overly wide roadway. It has 6 lanes of traffic really for about 4 lanes of traffic volume. Speeds are clocked in at 58 miles an hour, 85th percentile, even though the speed limit is 30. They're large turning radii. These are long crossing distances, and if you come on the wrong day, you might have to pick your way around the water like I did on this image. And so does anybody else have any other observations about this intersection? This is less, I guess, less of this, fewer of the students are going through here, but you know, people going to and from the metro obviously are moving through this intersection.
One thing that Ms. Clarice Cook-Ward and other students mentioned when we were walking is near the metro, there's lots of drainage, and I think Marcus pointed this out in the chat. And in the wintertime, from the picture, you can see the metro and how it kind of the drainage will go to Cabot Branch Road, which is a little bit further down, but there's water here. So it reminded me, and during the winter, it'll freeze over. So students are having to run across the intersection and then slipping and sliding on their way to get to school, which is obviously really unsafe.
Right. It sounds very dangerous. Any other thoughts? Okay. Well, sort of just based on these observations, I wanted to just make some notes about the kinds of interventions that SHA and other transportation engineers are doing to address some of these problems. And this is actually a section of Old Georgetown Road in Montgomery County, where SHA redesigned the road from a 6-lane highway like we have here at Maryland 214, and well, they built it, so it's more than proposed, but this is from the drawings. So they actually built protected bike lanes. I think the sidewalk looks about the same, but they basically buffered the bike lanes and maintained the median that they had. So that's I don't know if anyone wants to has any experience with this and wants to comment on this, or we can talk about a couple other interventions. Okay. And then from tool design, they sort of gave us lots of, we had asked for kind of quick build kinds of, improvements to address immediate safety needs. And so these are some of the examples of transportation, of improvements to take an overly wide roadway or a corner and bump out the corner so that it narrows the roadway to slow down vehicles either going through the intersection or turning onto the roadway. Oops. And this is sort of an interesting example where, you see this super wide crossing and it's really just for a 2-lane road, basically. So this is kind of an image of some of the work that tool design has done in terms of channelizing these overly wide openings to get motor vehicles to know to be guided to the appropriate speeds and tracking for the roadway. And this is an example of sort of looking at the difference between turning radius of actual turning radius versus effective turning radius, which is sort of an interesting concept that I've learned more about, where you can, this bulb out is narrowing the crossing distance for that pedestrian and slowing down the vehicle turning, but it actually has a bigger effective turning radius because the offset of the bike lane actually, and so the vehicle's turning has a wider turning radius, even though from a pedestrian perspective you have a kind of smaller you're getting the benefit of a shortened crossing distance, basically. And this is actually a curb extension drawing out of Prince George's urban street design standards, which shows essentially the same thing of the standard for Prince George's for their urban roadways right around metro stations is a 15-foot turning radius, which is obviously like a very square corner, basically, so that a vehicle needs to slow way down in order to make that turn. And obviously slower travel is going to be safer for everybody, and the vehicle is going to be safer because it's slowing down, it's looking, pedestrians will have more visibility with a driver going at a slower speed. And these are just some more examples of these kinds of removing a slip lane. The red circle shows a slip lane. Interestingly enough, we don't have any slip lanes around the Addison Road metro station, which is a point in its favor. Has a lot of other challenges, but it doesn't have a slip lane. And basically, here's an example of closing up that slip lane. Slip lanes are basically just are mostly designed to move vehicles through an intersection and reduce delay for vehicles. And I am told there are some specific scenarios for certain types of acute turns where there might be the actual need for a slip lane. But in most cases, I think their design is really for moving vehicles and really creating a lot of hazards for pedestrians, because pedestrians are given it's faster turning speeds and more things to cross, basically, and track. And this is just another tool design example of how to move a large vehicle through an intersection that you're tightening up so that it's doesn't have those wide sweeping turns, but you can still move large vehicles through it. And that was what I wanted to discuss. I in terms of the walk audit, and I think I'd actually I'd be interested in a couple of things. One is I'd be interested if Mr. Florence from SHA has any thoughts or Cynthia from MDOT or and then Linda from the Blue Line Planning Team. Eric, did you want to make any comments?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so yes, couple of things about Maryland 214 at Cabin Branch. So I know that we're aware of that intersection, and I guess there has been a couple of requests for signalization there. And so what I had decided to do was I was going to follow up to see where that request is, like what was the result of that study. I do know that we have one in for 214 at the metro station intersection. And I believe that one was, I'm looking up now, I think that one's recently approved.
For the pedestrian crossing?
Yes.
I think
for
that's signalized, isn't it?
214 at Addison Road Metro entrance.
It already has a signal.
Has a signal?
Yes.
It's not active yet, though.
Oh, okay.
Is it still in flashing, maybe?
No,
Correct.
it's active.
Oh, that one is active now?
It is. It's been active for a couple of years.
Yeah, that one is active, but I will say that traveling that road often, because it's right there at the metro station. Well, I don't know whether it's because it's at the metro station or whether it's in between a light and then that other speed camera. I've seen, and maybe Ms. Cook-Ward, you can speak to this. I've seen people kind of speed through that light very often. Have you seen that as well?
I have. I had to, honestly, I had to stop going that way because it was a little treacherous some mornings.
Okay. So I'll follow up with the Cabin Branch Road intersection, but just also 214 in itself, that corridor from the DC line to, I want to say it's Garrett Morgan.
Mm-hmm.
That whole corridor is part of it's been selected as part of our PSAP, which is Pedestrian Safety Action Plan. Now, right now, we already have a list of locations statewide that are being actively designed that were deemed as the priority based on the data that was collected. 214 is kind of in that next grouping. And right now, what we're waiting for is, I guess, to find out whether or not 214 is going to get the approval to move forward. We are, as a district, that is one of our priorities, and I think we're quite excited, anxiously waiting to see if that would get approved because we see the need as well.
Great.
And some of the treatments you was discussing would be some of those that we would implement. The tightening of the curb radius, obviously crosswalks, curb bump outs. Those are very effective treatments that would go along in addressing a lot of the safety concerns on 214. Another thing about the speed limit, because it is a 6-lane divided highway, it suggests to motors that they can drive faster than what the posted speed limit. So I agree. The posted speed and the character of the road doesn't match. And I think that's something we are still looking into. We have to find a way to make the road resemble what the speed limit is.
Great. Thank you. Well, so Linda, do you want to talk a little bit about the Blue Line sector plan and how that might touch on this work?
Certainly. I'll start by saying that there are 3 sets of activities going on concurrently. There is the sector plan, and within the sector plan, we cover 8 different elements. One of those being transportation and mobility, and recognizing that walkability, bikeability are important and are critical to creating the types of environments that we'd like to see around the metro stations. And so that has been a big focus of the team. I shared all of my notes, all of the tool design group notes with the team members who are working on the transportation and mobility section. So we're identifying specific strategies that we will incorporate into the plan that will help support any future advocacy efforts. Concurrently, our transportation planning team within the county is currently working on an update to the master plan of transportation. And that, Scott Rowe, I know you included on the invitation list, was not able to join us this evening. And Evan Tenenbaum and a couple of other individuals are working very closely to ensure that whatever strategies are in the sector plan align with whatever is going to be incorporated into the master plan of transportation. Complete Streets is figuring prominently, focusing on how pedestrians and bicyclists move through and the role of public transportation. So we're deprioritizing cars and prioritizing everybody else and other modes of transport, but that's still in drafting and review. And then the county DPW&T, obviously, they just there's a draft of revised urban street design guidelines that we're waiting to get finalized so it can be cascaded through the master plan of transportation as well as the sector plan. But all of the items that you highlighted during your presentation are certainly observations that I made, and then again was on tool design groups, and so those all will be embedded within the sector plan as well as bigger picture issues along Maryland 214 and how we make the character of the roadway match the speed and, more importantly, match the intended TOD development along that corridor.
Great. Thank you, Linda. I wanted to mention that we are looking at putting together a like a July event, I think a virtual event, maybe featuring MDOT SHA's new Complete Streets policy with Candice Holford, who is the director for the Active Transportation Program. And we'd like to obviously kind of connect this to this kind of work on the ground. And so trying to figure out what's the best way to do a program there to include, Central High School community and others in kind of essentially sort of giving it a case study for Complete Streets policy update by the state and how we can apply that to state roads in Prince George's and specifically to Central Avenue. Cynthia, did you have any comments you wanted to make? I know you work kind of at a different level than this, so I don't know if this is where you want to
Well,
jump
mine
in.
comes through as the behavioral, and I know we've heard this and you hear this in a lot of things, the cultural. We've got to get that cultural shift and cultural change. And that's one of the things that I think is great to highlight with WABA, with what they're doing with the students that they had, the 4 youth this year, and growing that. So I know the PTA president, I think it was the president and I had some conversations about potentially, making either taking from the SAD group, if they have a SAD group, or creating a SAD group. I know sometimes that does take a teacher advisor.
That's a funny acronym. Can you explain what it means?
Students Against Destructive Decisions. So MAD is typically
I see.
that used to be Mothers Against Drunk Driving. I think it's Mothers Against Destructive Decisions now, but essentially taking that youth oriented and talking to other youth about the safe choices in transportation. So obviously we have a lot of students that walk and they have those challenges getting across those locations. But we also have a large percentage that are starting to drive and how their behaviors can affect those as well. So that was something, they had some thoughts in the for the start of the school year, and I'd love to I have their business cards. So I do plan on reaching out towards the August timeframe to see if there's anything that we can help to facilitate to get that more. I mean, I can come in and talk to the students all day long. It's so much they just get so much more out of it if they have another student or someone closer to their age who can talk about all the different things to help make those changes so that we can slow people down, so we can get people off the phones, so we can make it safer for those walking. It just takes a lot of education and collaboration to get that stuff done.
Yeah, I have a I have someone who's coming in to be a teenager in my household, and obviously it's a lot of effort to get them to make good choices. But boy, we need a built environment that supports their safety and good choices.
Well, and I think the other thing is we often think of high schoolers, that's where we need to reach them and start talking about driving. But I have 4 young children, and my oldest being 12, my youngest being 6. And they kind of joke that they probably know more about traffic safety behaviors than, most kids their age. But my hope is that I'm teaching them the safe ways to be in a vehicle, around a vehicle. So while we do know that to get that built environment is financial, there are quick builds that can be a little bit less, but in that meantime, what can we do? So I have asked my children and even those who aren't driving in the high schools, to make those safe choices and to say, I don't feel safe when you pick up your phone while driving. I don't feel safe when you're going over the speed limit. With digital dashes, a lot of the kids can see our speed limits now too. And so those are things that another teen to another teen can say, and it takes a lot more value than just going like, hey man, don't speed, or put your phone down. There's ways to approach it. And again, that's their education to make sure that they know a good choice on how to present it to somebody else.
Right. Well, I appreciate the work that Linda's doing with the planning department. What we're kind of the kind of missing piece in terms of this discussion is the connection between the work that Eric is doing at State Highway Administration and what the county is doing at DPWT, the Department of Public Works and Transportation, and also the permitting agency is involved in street design as well. So I sort of recognize that that's a kind of one component of the decision makers involved in Central Avenue and the intersections, and obviously the safe access on Cabin Branch Road to the high school that's not connected here. But we are continuing to reach out to the county decision makers. Delegate Roberson, I wanted to see if you had any kind of final thoughts, and I just want to ask others if they wanted to make some additional comments and closing thoughts.
Yeah, thank you once again, Cheryl, for this invitation and finding ways for us to collaborate. And I definitely want to help with that initiative for Safe Streets in July as well. So let me know how I can be of assistance to that. I did have a question for y'all. I know that there's a speed camera, and I don't know whose speed camera it is. It comes after the entrance to Cabin Branch on 214. If you're going towards DC, and I don't know if that's a county one or if it is one for Seat Pleasant.
Yep, it's the city of Seat Pleasant.
Got it. Okay, that's helpful. And so I've been talking to the councilwoman over there as well, and just one because there were some quick ideas we thought about, and so I'll reach out to her on that as well, just to see how we can move it forward. Because one thought was even moving the speed camera for the interim until we have some resolution there as well. But that was just one of my thoughts for that, especially because the speed camera kind of doesn't catch you in that quote unquote speed zone going down the hill.
Oh, you mean the speed camera is posted on the up side westbound?
Correct.
Okay. Well, obviously it's a design problem that I'd like that speed camera to be less profitable very soon. But you're saying the positioning should be looked at to do more to deter higher speeds.
Correct. Yeah, I definitely believe in deterrence, not about profitability. We're not DC. So we're not here trying to run our budgets off of speed cameras, but I definitely believe that there is a use for them when used correctly.
Clarice, did you have any closing thoughts?
I was gonna ask if there could be an additional one to not remove it, but put an additional one in there to perhaps slow down traffic somewhat. And I'm not exactly certain as to if this would be addressed here, but a lot of the students were saying that the bushes are overgrown as well, which
Mm,
makes them sometimes have to walk into the streets because
hmm.
they're the bushes and the sidewalks are overgrown. And also the area under the overpass or near the overpass from Addison Road, it does freeze in the wintertime and the children, again, they have to walk into the streets.
Hmm.
And which is very dangerous because everyone does not pay attention. Not even the students pay attention sometimes because they're on their phones walking in the streets, which is another issue in and of itself. But that is a tremendous concern for me because when I come down and go to work every day, they're on their phones. But again, that's another issue. Um, I don't know, maybe some awareness needs to be brought to that as well for the cell phones, driving with the cell phones
Ms.
and
Cruz,
walking.
yeah, and I was going to refer to your question about the moving of the camera. I know that Prince George's County, we have stipulations as to speed cameras can place in certain areas. So that's kind of why I was saying move it as opposed to add an additional one. So we, to my point about DC, we aren't allowed to just place as many as we want wherever we want. So that's kind of why we're in that situation. So I need to do some research to see, or maybe even if the state highway can put one there as well. But those are my two quick responses to that as far as the speed camera location.
Or even the one that monitored the radar, that monitors the speed. I noticed when I'm driving home, the one that was placed just past the signal light where we turned left, cars slow down a tad, even if they're just slowing down to 60, which is a help for some of the students. If that could be placed down closer to Cabin Ranch, that may be beneficial for the short term.
We can look into maybe some type of speed monitoring at that location. As far as the speed camera, that would need to come from the so we normally get those requests through like local law enforcement. And then we work with them to get an approved location and then we have a vendor that comes in and installs it. We don't manage the speed cameras. We just permit their use
Right.
within the right. So it's a process and it's not something that can't be done. And what I'll do is I'll follow up with our traffic section to see if we have an open request or if we can first if we have an open request for any type of speed camera enforcement at that location. And then as far as like you said, you wanted something that kind of flashes the speed of the drivers. Is that what
Right.
you're looking for?
Right.
I can look into that and see what if that's something we can do at that location. And it was another, I guess, comment about overgrowth. Was that in the meeting or where are we talking about that?
There were several places along Central Avenue that the overgrowth with the bushes and the growth on the grounds, like the ground cover,
Mm-hmm.
that would cause the children to walk into the street. On both sides of the street, both where I believe it's a car, something to deal with cars, that area there, and going towards the district.
Oh,
It
like
was
the
a
auto
lot of,
repair shop, you're saying?
yes, yes. Couldn't remember what it was. It was somewhere around about that area where the overgrowth was taking place. And then on the opposite side of the street, there were a lot of bushes that the children say they have to walk around in order to get to to the school.
Okay.
And my last question is it possible to have rumble strips closer to Cabin Ranch to slow down traffic somewhat?
Rumble strips.
Right, in the streets. Like
Yeah, no.
I'm sorry?
No, I was just I was looking at the map of the area that you was referring to.
So
We typically
right at the,
don't put bumper strips on a road like this, just because of the nature of the road. But I can at least put a request in and see if we will look at it. I mean, all of it would be part of a larger study to be honest with you.
or at least on the street, the strip on the lane on the far right, closer to the corners,
Mhm.
because again, those children, they literally have to run and get across the street.
Right.
And
Maybe
at
you
least
just drop 2 of those travel lanes and make it a 4-lane road.
that'll make it even better.
To be honest with you, we could do it. It is a balance between operations, traffic operations, and safety. Obviously, safety is the priority here. You referenced Ms. Court. You referenced the Maryland 187 in Montgomery County, and that was something that we thought was a very good treatment. That was quick, and it did allow for bicycles to have a safer area. But then now the commuters is challenged. So yeah, we have the balance, but we can take a look at it. Now I have all the comments here and I've taken note of it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And as we're closing up, I just want to say thank you to everyone for hopping on this call and being a part of the walk, and not only your engagement but your feedback, because like what I hope like Mr. Florence showed with Ms. Cook Ward is that eventually a lot of our slow rolling momentum will have picked up moss, not just kind of the stuff that needs to be cleared away from the sidewalks and the medians, but the momentum that we need to get real progress on these issues. And I really appreciate it because Delegate Roberson, I think 2 of the things that I definitely want to make sure that we follow up with you about are some of the things that Mr. Florence from State Highway focused on, including making sure that 214 stays a priority corridor and kind of next up in the funding queue to be prioritized as a pedestrian highway action plan target. And even if that's something that we can kind of augment with a support letter from you and other members of District 24 and District 25, that would be great. And then separately, I think just longer term, looking at making sure that State Highway can have a permitted, kind of semi-permanent camera, like along that corridor. Like even though the city of the town of Seat Pleasant has their own stuff, like they sometimes have to move it. Like there's sometimes reasons why like their vendor and provider and camera equipment might be down. And it's the kind of corridor, even though we might have to wait a few years for there to be the real traffic and engineering changes that we need. In the meantime, like making sure that we expedite getting like a regular speed camera enforcement. It's like a good prophylactic or extra protection for everybody that shares the road out there. Because I've been on both 214 and Old Georgetown Road for like 2 sets of different jobs that I've done in my life. And like the difference between the 2 roads are like night and day. Both in the case of like Old Georgetown Road, both before and after the traffic diet changes, but just in general, just having the principles of like stronger enforcement oversight with good cameras that are permanent, as well as some of the design changes that Ms. Cook Ward and everybody else has sourced would be really great next steps. So thank you to Cheryl and everybody else.
With that, thank you, Bernard. Any other parting thoughts? If not, I'll make sure that I'll reshare the technical notes that the tool design engineer provided. And we will follow up with everybody to make sure that you know about and possibly can join us for carrying on this discussion on complete streets in July. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye, Cheryl.
Bye-bye.